I even have the lyrics in this version. I saw him dancing there by the record machine. I was certain it was standing on the wild card line. Caller 270. You're on the air with Rippin' Rabbit and Moneybags. Go ahead. Where are you calling from and your first name?
Am I the one that's on the
caller.
air? Okay, I didn't think I would get through. I'm calling from Southern Illinois, and I just want to thank you. I've been really interested in this I didn't discover it until probably about 9 months ago. It's been very intriguing.
Okay.
Some of the songs, I am a Christian, and I just think that there is something satanic involved. Maybe all the things that are in the secular world are trying to get the people, some people's attention, and then maybe notice the Bible changes. I'm not sure. But I've noticed in some of the songs, like where the end of the world is gone from Queen's song. We discussed that earlier. I'm not sure. And the Billie Jean
Yeah,
one,
what you're saying is that it's one thing when it's a Queen song, but when it's the physical words in the Bible that you cherish, what you're saying that you witness the change to, that's when it becomes more personal for you, is what you're saying.
Correct. And I'm just wondering if it's something that a lot of people maybe aren't Christians, and maybe this will get their attention. It kind of has. I've always been a Christian, but it has gotten my attention, and I have started reading my Bible more. But some of the songs that have changed to me are kind of giving a message, like the world. The Billie Jean one, after he says, we were talking about it, mama turned to mother.
Yes.
And then the next thing he said was, the Billie Jean one, the lies are now the truth. That was like the next lyric in the song. And then the next Prince, I was a really big Prince fan when I was growing up. And the beginning, this isn't one that many talk about. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate this thing called life, or electric word life. It means forever, and that's a mighty long time. But I mean to tell you, there's something else. The afterlife.
The afterlife.
That's the way I remember it. Celebrate afterlife. And now...
And you have a vivid memory because you're able to go back to not just that moment, but you recite the entire lyric.
Yes. I listened to Prince over and over. I just loved his music, and I just very, very vividly remember that. But now, celebrate has changed to get through this thing called life. Totally different meaning. And it just seems to me like there's some sort of a message. I'm a little nervous. I didn't think I'd get through, and I certainly didn't think I'd get through that quickly.
Yeah.
But I think that there are
doing well,
some
and I thank you. So Moneybags, let's let him respond, caller. Moneybags, what she's saying, is there some sort of a message? Is there something, from a much greater, more spiritual level at work here? And is that something that we should be aware of?
You're listening to Rippin' Common Sense Radio.
That's right, where we take you well into the midnight hour with our special Art Bell Archives show, happening tonight and every night this weekend, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. Tune in as we open up the Art Bell archives and dive into the lost classics of a vocal treasure. We take a look at those stories and we bring them up to date and we share them with you. We ask for your input and your shout outs, your call-ins. as we go through the most amazing stories ever told. Tune in tonight and every night as we reinvestigate the Art Bell Archives live.
The Art Bell Archive Show. 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. RipandCommonSense.com.
To let it fall apart. As we're going to talk about tonight, and in the dawn before appears. That's right. Believe it or not, this is a long, age-old That's tonight. Saturday, December 26th, 2019. Give yourselves a big round. We're going to dive into connecting to your brain and spreading and moving. It's very hard to do. I'm kidding. Okay. So let's do this properly. Check 1, 2. How is that? I killed the opening music because tonight I'm checking a few things. So I want to know, can you hear me okay now? Put a 1 in the chat room if you can. Put a 1 in the chat room if you can hear me now. I have to say, what I didn't expect would happen, happened. I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. But put a 1. Okay, so Lunar hears me. Stober still says, cannot hear the prologue. Let me see if I can tune this up. Stober is now at 1. How's that? Is that better? Are we getting a little bit better in volume? I'm going to tell you, here's what happened. The truth is that we really have no control over this evening's performance. We really have no control over tonight's show. We really don't. That's the truth. So here's what happened. Okay, good now. Santa and his elves were very, very kind to the Rippin' Rabbit. And tonight, since Christmas, is the first time that I'm using a completely new audio setup. We're going to get into the Brain Act, Stover, in just a few minutes. It's going to be a wild night, but I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I am using tonight as a beta experimental test because literally over the course of Christmas, I was given well over $1,000 worth of audio equipment to make the show better. And I've been trying since Christmas Eve, folks, to really get it connected, get everything set up, and get everything ready for the way that we do our shows here. I feel like a moron, okay? I'm going to tell you right now. I feel like an absolute bubbling idiot because the last time that I got to play with this type of expensive equipment, I was very, very young, much younger than I am today. Almost 20 years ago, before I got to play with this kind of equipment. And here I am, opening up Christmas presents on Christmas Eve. And I get this most amazing, unbelievable equipment as my Christmas gift. Santa and the elves were absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to tell you right now that I may have a natural radio personality. Thank you, Lunar. I really do appreciate that. But I am flying by the seat of my pants tonight with Brainiacs. I really am. I have been to the Apple Store in the last 3 days. I've been there 4 times. I've exchanged 3 different products. I've really been trying to get this dialed in and perfect for you. And we're just not there yet. So give yourselves a round of applause for being a seed in my garden. Because a year from now, we'll think back about this and we'll say, never happened. It was a growing pain, if you will. But I really do have to thank Santa and his elves for what they did for the Ripon Rabbit Hole this Christmas. Tonight is the first night, and I've had it since Christmas. I'm going to tell you right now, I have literally a brand new board. I have an entire new setup in the studio, and I have no idea how to run it. I really don't. I've been trying to do it. So tonight we're going to play Anything Goes, and we're going to hope that we get through it. Anyways, I have a 1 in the chat room, so I'm assuming that I'm actually coming through and that my voice is being heard. I'm going to adjust the microphone just a little bit. Thank you, Lunar. I don't profess to have a radio voice, but people have told me that, and I really have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know if I can get the clips to play for you tonight. I know that it's going to be a challenge. I got to tell you, we went back and forth trying to get this all connected, and hopefully it's going to work. So you have to bear with me, because tonight I have clips and things that I want to play, and I cannot do that currently. Thank you, Higher Living. Thank you. Stober saying the audio is crisp. Josh from Oregon just finished listening to the Disappearing Towns episode. Vanished Towns. That's right. Wish I could help you run it all. Thank you, May Devil. I wish you could too. I really have no idea how I sound or how it's coming through. If you listen closely in the background, can you hear the voice of an angel? Listen closely. I really have to say, tonight is very unusual, because normally I have this all under control, and I decided to pull the trigger after unwrapping these gifts and finding these phenomenal gifts that are going to make this podcast even that much better. We are going to move into 2020 with some of the best pro audio equipment that you can possibly shake a stick at. And after January 1st, we're going to be thanking our sponsor for that. But I'm going to tell you, when I started out in broadcast, I started out at a local public access TV station. And we were producing primarily city council meetings and things that, were public affairs, zoning, so on and so forth. I really got into it. I was much, much younger than I am today, and it grew. It was a fascination. I started this job at Local Access Channel 19 when I was 12, 13, maybe 14 years old. Either way, it was between the summer of the 8th grade year and my freshman year. And I found this job to be absolutely fascinating, and it held me through high school. It actually was a fantastic job. It was something that kept me occupied, paid me, and allowed me to learn about the world of broadcast. And one of the persons that I would listen to night after night after night was Art Bell. And I was so impressed with the way that he handled. Okay, I'm going to take a break now for a moment before I go on with Art Bell and the way that he handled his broadcast. And I'm going to just say that this is a first for me, because normally when I'm live in my studio doing these shows, you cannot hear what's going on around me. But tonight, the microphones and the mixing boards that we're experimenting with and that we're playing with are picking up the finite detail. Now, you've paid attention to the show. You understand I have a guest listener who's been on the show from time to time. She was on our mind reading episode. Her name is Nikki Rabbit. And if you listen closely, you can hear Nikki Rabbit in the background. And she's singing karaoke, because that's what she does. Well, I decide to spend time with you, speaking about brain hacks tonight, in a totally unconventional format show. Listen closely. That's how sensitive this mic is. I'm actually a little bit shocked, because I never, ever in a million years thought that Santa would wrap up the gifts that were under the tree this year. And I'm blown away. And I'm gonna be perfectly blunt and perfectly honest. I have no clue what I'm doing with this new equipment. I really don't. I feel like such an old school kid. But either way, we're going to get it figured out. Thank you, Josh, for laughing, because we are going to get it figured out. It's going to happen. Good things are going to come. Anyways, in August of 2001, a researcher named Neil Slade came on the Art Bell Coast to Coast program. And Neil discussed how people can release their brain's neurocircuits for increase in creativity, intelligence, and even paranormal abilities. And tonight, as we discuss brain hacks, we're going to talk about part of the subject that we left off last night. Now, if you were with us at Rip'n Rabbit Hole last night, and you were there for the time acceleration mode and the time acceleration show, then you know we have dopamine deficiency. Because dopamine is what causes time to go slower the more that we have it. The less that we have, the less that we're prepared for dopamine, the faster time goes, according to medical research and scientific research that we heard last night. I'm wearing earbuds, and I'm so glad that you're wearing earbuds, Lunar. I'm going to tell you why in just a moment. But I'm wearing earbuds, and I cannot hear background noise. So you can't hear Nicole belting out Guns N' Roses in the next room. I'm surprised. I really am. Your voice is coming through crisp and clear. Thank you. Again, like I said, brand new equipment. We have, literally thousands of dollars sitting on the studio desk tonight that I have no idea how to run. But we're going to go right to what you're talking about with your earbuds. And I'm glad that you're wearing earbuds, because tonight, folks, if you're not like Lunar Skyclad, and you're not wearing earbuds, I strongly, and I'll emphasize, and I'll neon light, and I will boldface, I strongly emphasize, tonight is a night that you want to wear earphones. And as we get into the second half and the end of the first half of the program, you're going to see exactly. Volume seems to be 10 points low. All right, so according to that, we should be able to do this. How's that? That's 10 points louder. That's one louder. My amp goes to 11. I'm not joking. If you have earphones tonight is the night that you want to wear them. In fact, I strongly encourage you to plug in your earphones and take advantage of what we get into later in the show. So, like I said, when researcher Neil Slade came on Art Bell, he discussed how people can release their brain powers or their neurocircuits to increase in many aspects creativity, intelligence, and even certain paranormal abilities. And we're going to talk about that tonight. In fact, we're going to have 8 more. If I go 8 more, my ears are going to be coming out. Yes, I am using Studio Phone Stover, and my ears are already popping out of my head. Higher living. Thank you. Thank you. And again, I need your help with this because, I decided to go live with the technology that's new as opposed to going, hi, may the devil rest. We're talking about what an experimental night tonight will be. I don't even know where I am in my follow-up, but I do hear. Okay, so quick story. I'll divert just for a moment because those of you that are here, you understand. Normally, when I go live, I have a routine. Everything happens exactly the same. And normally, when I go live, I have the ability to control clips that I play, guests that are on the show, my own microphone. And the one thing that has been bothering me ever since we began about 2 months ago is that I have had no ability to eliminate the delay in my voice. So let me put that into perspective. What that means is normally when I do the shows under the old setup that was here last night, normally when I speak, I hear myself in my headphones about 10 seconds delayed. I've heard this on open call-in line shows with Moneybags 73 that we've done. I've heard this with my own voice where guests will call in the call-in line or a guest will be in the backstage and there's this delay, okay, a latency. And I want you to know from a production standpoint that I hear this latency in my own headphones on my own voice. So imagine how crazy it is to be able to talk for an hour or more without having any clue whether or not you can hear yourself. Okay, so normally my headphones have one cup off of my ear so I can hear myself in the studio and hear myself in a delayed reaction to the broadcast. But tonight, thanks to Santa and his elves and the Christmas trees Christmas presents he left under the tree for the Ripon Rabbit Hole, I am pleased to say this is the first time I've ever done a broadcast where I can hear my voice in my headphones in real time. I'm elated. I really am excited. Anyways, Neil Slade, not Terrence McKenna, he was last night. Neil Slade discussed how people can release the brain's neurocircuits for increases in creativity, intelligence, and even paranormal abilities. People have the ability to increase their brain power and include these types of strategies into modern day thinking. So what we're going to hear is the author of the book Tickle Your Amygdala, Neil Slade. And this is him explaining his thoughts when it comes to why brain stimulation is so important. Now, normally I could just play the clip. Normally the clip would already be playing, but now you're hearing me in my absolute worst case scenario.
And as I've extrapolated the practical points and made it easy to understand for anyone. We taught kids in kindergarten how to click their amygdala forward. So anyone, age 6 to 106 can learn how to do this.
Okay, so how would you do it?
Well,
As two tiny parts of your brain, and then
Apparently that didn't work either. All right, so what's going on? How do we play these clips? I know. I know. I'm telling you. I feel like a high schooler right now. I really do. Put a 1 in the chat room if you can hear me at this moment. I'm trying to get it fixed. I'm trying to get it working. Let's see, what the heck can I do? All right, Adobe Audition. Let's see the loop back for this clip. Adobe Audition. internal speakers. That's good. All right. Thank you, Lunar, Josh, May. Something is not functioning. I'm really disappointed because tonight is such a cool show. We have to play these clips. We really do. Here we go. Let's try it one more time. Nope. All right. Come on. It just doesn't want to work. Let me try this.
Exercise them, kind of like working out. Apparently, it makes you a happier person. That's Neil Slade's theory, anyway. He's a teacher, a musician, and an author. The book's called The Frontal Lobe Supercharged. Neil Slade is with us now from Denver, Colorado. Okay, explain the brain tweaking for us.
Well, first of all, it's a proven hypothesis. It's not a theory. We're talking about things in proven neurology. And what all I've done is I've extrapolated the practical points and made it easy to understand for anyone. We taught kids in kindergarten how to click their amygdala forward. So anyone, age 6 to 106 can learn how to do this.
Okay, so how would you do it?
Well, the first thing you have to realize is you have to understand how the human brain works. It's kind of like knowing where to put the key in your car, what the gear shift lever does. So the first thing people do, they can go to the website, read one of the books, is learn brain basics, learn a model of the brain. And I brought a model of the brain here, and this is actual to scale size.
Okay.
And very quickly, I'll show you the main parts of the human brain. Now, of course, the brain is divided into two hemispheres, right?
Right.
And we'll put this part down. Okay, now, we use Dr. Paul MacLean's model of the human brain when teaching people how the human brain works. And the human brain is 3 brains in 1. The inner part here is what is called by researchers and medical people the R complex, or reptile brain.
Right.
And it helps you to survive on the same level as a reptile. Now, surrounding that is another layer, kind of like the core around the seeds of an apple, and that's called the mammal brain, or the limbic system. Now, all of this part, which is usually what we think of when we think of the brain, is what you can see, that's called the primate brain. And the very whole front 1/3 from this point forward is your frontal lobes, and that's the most advanced part of the brain. And that's what we're trying to turn on with brain self-control, okay? Now, when you have fear and negative emotions, it's because all of the frontal lobes are turned off. You don't have any advanced frontal lobes processes happening. But when you turn them on, that's when you get all kinds of internal brain rewards, and that's when you feel happy and pleasure. And so the trick is a little tiny switch right here, and I'm pointing to it if you want to zoom in on that. It's called the amygdala, and it's one of your brain's master click switches.
Is that kind of by the eye?
Well, actually, if you put your thumbs in your ears and your fingers in the corners of your eye and drag your finger down and point, 1 inch inside each temple is your amygdala switch. So you've got one for the right hemisphere and one for the left. So it's about 1 inch inside each temple. Little master click switch called the amygdala. And the trick is to understand how all the brain works. And then there are lots of different games you can play and methods for clicking this amygdala forward. Now, I brought this other little model that I made to show you what happens. Now, we'll say this is the amygdala switch button inside your brain. It's really inside your brain, but here I've made it an external one because it's easy to get to. Now, deep inside the brain, we see the red fight or flight survival reptile brain turned on, right?
Right.
That's always on because it controls your breathing and your heart rate and temperature, and allows you to run away from snakes and threats and things like that. If you click your amygdala switch forward, what it does is it then allows additional electrochemical activity to occur in the frontal lobes. And here we see now the amygdala has clicked the frontal lobes on full blast.
So for our viewers,
Most of the time, what?
explain to us just a small little exercise we can do. So what you're saying is you kind of want to tickle the amygdala, right? You want to kind of look like a feather. Not really, but you imagine it.
Well, you imagine it. Your frontal lobes can compute abstract thought. You can imagine things. And when you do that, when you imagine things, create things in your mind that really don't exist, that automatically clicks on the most advanced parts of your brain. So very simple. If your viewers would just like to close their eyes while they're listening to me talk, imagine that you're holding a feather in one hand and that you can reach back through your forehead and tickle, 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 tickle your left amygdala button.
Kind of like Tickle Me Elmo.
You know that
no, I'm laughing because, it just sounds
But that's
funny,
okay. That's good. Laughter is computed in the frontal lobes. You just clicked your amygdala forward.
Well, there you go.
Laughter and happiness is a positive emotion. And positive emotions are nature's way of encouraging us to do those kinds of activities that actually increase our survival. So when you click your amygdala forward and make yourself laugh, and when you think creatively, like tickling your amygdala, you're turning on the other 90% of your brain, as it were. Most of the time, we're only walking around. We've just got just a tiny trickle going into the frontal lobes. But by learning how your brain works, by learning what the amygdala does, by learning the difference between your frontal lobes and your reptile brain, you can crank it up. And then, hey, now we're talking about, nirvana, that kind of thing.
The enlightenment, the meditation.
Every religion, even if you're an atheist, everyone has a word for this peak experience where you suddenly have an understanding of the big picture, as it were. And it's always indicated by these very wonderful positive emotions. It's a peak experience. And that happens only when the frontal lobes have been cranked up like this.
Okay.
Now, throughout history, there have been people who've accidentally, clicked their amygdala fully forward, and those are our sages and and some of our saints.
Neil, I'd love to keep talking. I gotta go though, but it's very interesting, and I know there's a lot of buzz about it. Thanks so much for joining us and explaining that to us.
Well, sure. Have fun clicking forward.
I will. Thanks so much, Neil.
So now hopefully you can hear me again. Again, for those of you just joining us, we are experiencing a little bit of a technological breakthrough here at the Ripon Rabbit Hole. I have new technology, a new board, a new effects processor, a new microphone. I have like a whole new setup, and I'm learning as we go tonight. So that was Neil Slade, who was a guest on Art Bell's Coast to Coast show in August of 2001, talking about how you can tickle your amygdala. And what is the reason why you would want to do that? And we're going to have tonight a few experiences where we're going to tickle your amygdala. And I apologize for this. This show tonight is going to be history for sure. Hopefully you can hear me. And hopefully I'm coming through because everything is completely not as if it were. All right, so this is crazy. All right, so now what we're going to do, if you have your headphones, we're going to try this, okay? We're going to try using a clip to stimulate the brain. And this clip makes use of holophonic audio techniques to create a virtual environment surrounding the audience, and that's you at home. So if this works and you're listening and you have not put in your headphones, please put your headphones in now. This is very important to the broadcast tonight in how we're going to stimulate your brain and how we're going to hack your brain. So put a 1 in the chat room if your headphones are on so that I know. And we're going to figure this out. By tomorrow night, I guarantee you, I will have figured out this system. It's not that hard, but I'm at least pleased that we're as far as we are tonight. So put a 1 in the chat room if you are wearing headphones. And if you are not wearing headphones in tonight's live broadcast, then you'll want to make sure that you do so. And put them in. 2, says Z-Rabbit, meaning he does not have headphones. If you don't have headphones, this may possibly work if you just leave your audio come through. Lunar is wearing headphones. Stober is wearing headphones. Awesome. So we're gonna try this. What we're going to do is an experiment using the airwaves of radio and the technology of the internet today. We're going to try to induce a daydream, okay? Now, because of the way that the audio is set up in my room tonight, in the studio, I have to do this in parts. So I'm going to go off the microphone for a moment, and we're going to introduce the clips that you'll hear. And there's certain things, there's instructions for this tonight. So let's hope that this works. So I'm going to switch this over to Audition. And apparently that didn't work. So we're going to try this again. Keep your headphones in place. And apparently that didn't work. Boy, now we even have feedback. All right, let's try this again. We're going to reverse the clip back to where we started. Now this clip makes use of holophonic audio techniques to create a virtual environment surrounding you at home. So, excuse me. Let's see if we can get it to play. Come on now. Get it to play. Man, this is bad. It's still not wanting to play. Hold on. We're gonna make this work. Wow, I've never been so frustrated in all my life. Come on. All right, so this has to be here, which is here. This is there. Okay. And we're going to do loop back to you at home. It was just working. We just put so during this clip, which it looks like it's going to play now. During this clip, wow. Okay, during this clip, when it plays and you hear the steady tone, you're going to want to open your eyes. And when you hear the beeping tone, which you'll hear in just a moment, you're going to want to close your eyes. So when you hear the solid tone, eyes open. When you hear the beeping tone, eyes closed. Okay? So I have to preface that. And again, this is not like a normal night. We will have this figured out very, very soon. But at least you understand the instructions for this clip.
We've got a head trauma, one severe spinal injury between L3 and L4, lower limb paralysis and a score of 3 on the GCS. Doctor, could you go on with the assessment?
Sure. Mr. Roy? Can you hear me, Mr. Roy? No auditory reaction. No reaction to pain stimuli either.
If you keep on with the visual test, please.
No response. We have a GCS score of 3 out of 15.
Then confirm the deep coma status on the report.
Done.
Do we have any other patients to check, Doctor?
No, we're okay for now.
Good. I must leave for a while. Is there somebody from his family waiting outside?
Just the wife in the waiting room.
Well, I'll deal with the wife when I'm on the way out, and then I'll allow her to come up here. If you finish filling in the report and then tidy up.
Of course, Dr. Joyce. I'll see you later. Mrs. Roy. If you happen to notice anything, please let us know.
Okay, we need to operate. Somebody get in touch with his wife now. Good morning, Mrs. Roy.
Good morning, doctor.
Well, thanks to the operation, he's out of danger.
Is he able to hear us?
He's come from a deep coma to what we call a persistent vegetative state, which means that we've registered some neural activity in response to pain and thermal stimuli. The sound of a familiar voice may be helpful, but I don't expect any conscious response back for now.
I see.
He's going to stay under constant observation to check whether his conditions improve or change. But I must tell you that he could stay in this condition forever. I can't assure a complete recovery. All that we can do is wait.
Right. May you leave me a minute alone with him before I leave?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, doctor.
Goodbye, Mrs. Roy.
Goodbye. Have you heard, darling? I'll be with you. You don't have to worry about anything. I brought you something. Just to keep you company. Do you remember this song? It's the one from the first day we met. I found this music box just across the road. I'll put it here, near your bed. Such a black cloud in here. I'll bring you flowers tomorrow and put them in a pot, here. Every day we'll change the water. You are going to get better. I'll be with you. Love you.
Now, if that worked for you, and I know that tonight we're dealing with these technical difficulties, but you should have experienced the beginning stages of a daydream. And I apologize because tonight was supposed to be really clear audio. And the whole point of this audio illusion and this audio brain hack was to have clear audio, which I think we are getting on the live microphones, but we're not getting the same crisp and clarity on the actual videos. So The entire point of the last clip was to take you in to a hospital scenario where you could daydream for a moment that perhaps the events that were happening around you were actually happening. And that's why I've encouraged you to use headphones tonight. And as the best that I can absolutely try, I'm going to pass these clips along to you the way that they were intended to be. And if I re-listen to the broadcast and it's not the way that it's intended to be, I will redo this show again once we have the technology figured out. So I want to shout out to Josh in Oregon and Stover51 and Roy Rogers. Thank you for being here. Higher Living, PJW, and Bleed the Same, Lunar, and Z Rabbit. Thank you for bearing with me tonight. Z Rabbit knows that this technology has been here. I've had it since Christmas, and I finally decided to reroute the studio tonight for this purpose, and here we go. So it's live, folks. That's what happens on Saturday, December 28th, the last few days of 2019. So the first experiment was to involve your brain in being part of this traumatic experience. Okay? So now that you have your headphones, we're going to do the same thing, only this time I want you to note what it's like to be without your vision. So during that last clip, and again, I was supposed to be able to talk through the clip so that you could understand what you're supposed to do, but when you heard the long pause of the beep, you were supposed to open your eyes, and when you heard the short clips of the beat, you were supposed to close your eyes. And tonight, on this second experiment, I want you to keep your eyes closed. From the moment that I start the clip to the moment that I end the clip, I really want you to keep your eyes closed. Because what I'm going to simulate in your brain tonight, what I'm going to do in hacking your brain at this moment, is I'm going to trick or try to trick your brain into being blind, meaning that you have no eyesight, that you don't have the ability to see. And this is from the experience of Notes on Blindness, which is a 360 VR experience. And it basically comes after 1983, decades of steady study from a Mr. John Hall, who became totally blind. And to help him make sense of his life, he began documenting his experiences on audio cassettes. Now, this is back in 83. So we're talking about Maxell's. We're talking about, TDK. Back when music was music and audio was audio. And to help him make sense of his blind life, he began documenting his experience on audio cassettes. These original diary recordings from his bias of this, what is a 6-part recording, helps to stimulate your brain. Okay? So I want you to close your eyes now. Take a deep breath. Hold it in. Slowly let it out. Take another deep breath. Hold it in. And slowly let it out. just relax. Keep your eyes closed and listen to Notes on Blindness.
A note on the nature of acoustic space. I've spent some time recently out of doors concentrating on trying to understand what the essential nature of the acoustic world is. Sitting in the park with the children on Good Friday, Holy Saturday, I hear the footsteps of people walking past me on the footpath. Many different kinds of footsteps. Women's high-heeled shoes, shoes that sound like flip-flops. Groups of people walking together or apart. Children toddling along with rapid steps. Somebody running. They come from this side and that side. They mingle and separate and pass me. There's the rustling of the newspaper from somebody sitting on the next bench. And the murmur of conversation from people sitting on the same bench. Further out to the right and behind me there's the car park and the sound of people starting and stopping their cars and driving off. Way off to the left there's the main road and the noise of the heavy traffic roaring past in the distance. Further in front of me is the lake with the ducks and the other pond birds with all the quacking and the splashing that goes on all the time as they land and take off and fight and squabble over bits of food. There's the splash splash of the paddle boat and the little children crying out. Further off there's the different sound of the rowing boats out on the larger lake. Beyond that is the park itself, and here one has the distant cries of people playing ball, shouts of children. This is all set against the breeze blowing in the trees behind me. And the myriad voices and sounds coming from all these directions create a panorama of music and information, which is absorbing and fascinating. I suddenly hear a voice from the lake. My children are there, and previously they were not there, and not until they cried out. The strange thing about it is that it's a world which consists only of activity. Every sound is a point of activity. Where there is no activity, there's no sound, and then that part of the world dies.
Again, that was Notes on Blindness. The John Hull professor who was totally blind. And to help him make sense of his life being blind, he used audio cassette recordings in the park to record what you just heard. And to help us with vision make sense of his world of being blind. And of course, the purpose of the headphones and the experiment tonight, it could have been a Mixel tape, Stuber. I hope it was. The purpose is that you can close your eyes and you can listen and you can tap into the deeper receptors of your brain, and you can trick your brain for a moment to believing that you are, in fact, blind. Just like the first clip that we played prior, it was a daydream. The idea was, to open your eyes on the long pause and to close your eyes on the beeps, giving you some sort of an interactive experience with the audio file. And that's the unique thing about audio. And we learn from John Hall in Notes on Blindness that when you pay attention to your senses, when you work with the senses, especially that you only have, in his case, the sense of hearing, not the sense of seeing, but yet he still remains with the sense of touch. He still remains with the sense of smell. And of course, his audible ability to key in on the jogger moving through the park. This is an experiment for our brain. And here's the reality. If you weren't listening to this program currently, right now, live or on demand, if you weren't doing what you're doing now, you would be doing something other, perhaps on your phone, maybe on your computer, even on your television, whatever the case may be. Your brain would be responding to a stimulus that you've trained it to know. So let's take the scenario of getting ready for bed at night. It's time now to go to sleep, and my voice is sounding so soothing on this microphone. And normally I don't talk like this. I mean, literally, normally the microphone that I'm used to, I'm like, "Hi, this is AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit." And I'm like screaming on the microphone. But tonight, I feel like I really, really have to tone down the volume. It's really weird. We're going to get this all figured out, and it's going to work perfect. And tomorrow night, it's going to be fantastic. I haven't even taken a break, if you've noticed. Normally, I'm supposed to break. I'm actually 5 minutes into the second hour now. but I've got so much stuff to share with you. I've got so much information. And that's not how tonight's show was supposed to go. It wasn't supposed to be this slow. But as long as you have headphones in, and I have a really, really awesome microphone, let's really get into this for a moment. Because your brain has the ability to be tricked. We know this. That's how magicians make a living, by tricking someone's brain. And how do we tickle that receptacle that Neil talks about? How do we stimulate that? And if you joined us last night, which was a fantastic program on the old system, we talked about the ability of time to accelerate and time acceleration. And we heard about a mouse study that was done where mice were actually, deprived of dopamine and given dopamine, and were able to understand the difference between time based on their dopamine levels. So when we think about how do we raise our dopamine, that's what we didn't cover last night, which tonight, the Brain Hack episode, was supposed to be about a little bit about that. And these types of exercises, listening to Notes on Blindness and listening to the Daydream episode that we just heard, gave our brain a moment to relax. And I know that sounds silly, but the reality is that we need to. Our brain has to take time to relax. And relax in a unconventional way, to the way that we travel through our day. Let's be fair. Most of us are consuming some sort of entertainment or some sort of an internal intake 80, if not 90% of our day. Are we not? We get a text message, we know it. Somebody likes us on Facebook, we know it. Somebody retweets what we said on Twitter, we know it. We're connected in a way that our subconscious needs to have us disconnect from. Our subconscious is connected as equally as we are, and if we spend all day with our technology, and if that's our media for falling asleep at night, say we turn on Netflix and we watch a movie until we fall asleep. It's equivalent, if you're old enough to remember, what the 80s and the 90s were with linear TV, when you could turn on a channel late at night and you could watch until the channel went off air. And it was white noise, it was fuzz. Some of you in the chat may even remember when they would flash the flag at the end of the broadcast, at the end of the day, like usually at midnight. And if you fell asleep at, 1 o'clock in the morning and you woke up and your TV was still on, you didn't even think twice about it. You turned it off and you climbed into bed. And the reality is that today we don't have that. Because linear television or linear broadcasts are a thing of the past. Being able to channel flip yourself to sleep at night, if you're old enough to remember what that is, those days are gone. Now we have on demand, we have instant gratification. We can think of a subject like stimulating your brain, type it into YouTube, and before you know it, we've got 10,000 videos that we can watch for the next 3 months. But what does this do for your subconscious brain, who does not have any kind of say in that decision-making process? Because it's you, it's me, it's us. We're the ones that are saying, okay, I'm going to watch Netflix while I fall asleep, or I'm going to pop up YouTube, or as some of you may even pop open Rip'n Rabbit Hole and listen to us as you fall asleep. Our subconscious brain needs to let go. And it needs to have the ability to fall asleep properly. And what does that mean? It's simple. Okay? So let's remove the thought of Netflix. Let's remove the thought of YouTube. Let's think about ourselves in our comfortable place at night, in our bed, wherever we sleep, whatever our ritual for the evening is. In my case, I grab a glass of water mixed with a little bit of meal, and I climb into bed, and I'm ready now for the sleep, which I should be, because my subconscious is telling me, okay, it's time to sleep. It's time to shut down, whatever time it may be. And the reality is that I'm guilty of it too. I grab my iPad, I turn on the Fire Stick, I watch content. I consume content until I fall asleep, until recently, because I read about studies and information leading up to this Brain Hacks episode. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to do this episode again because we've gotten way off track. There were so many really interesting things that we were supposed to uncover and interactive things that we were supposed to do tonight with our time together, that right now I'm freestyling. I'm jamming. I'm Jimi Hendrix on the Woodstock stage going, come on, people, let's get with it. And I applaud you for sticking around through that, because that means a lot to me. So let's put the phone aside, okay? So the ritual of night, we climb into bed. Let's put the phone, the tablet, the iPad, the Fire Stick, the TV on the nightstand, the 57-inch Costco special. Let's put that aside. And let's pick up a book. You remember those? They have 2 hardcovers and about 800 pages in between. Books like we spoke about last night, Alvin Toffler, The Third Wave, or Art Bell's book, The Quickening. And let's read ourselves to sleep. Because if we do that, even for a few moments, we have the ability to allow our conscious and our subconscious to meld together. And this is very important. As we'll hear, and we've heard in Neil Slade's, he wants to tickle this particular portion of the brain that stimulates that dopamine. And that's very important, as we heard last night. Having greater amounts of dopamine and having your brain stimulated on dopamine is going to slow down time for you. It's going to relax you. And there are other ways to tickle that portion of your brain than with activities like reading. You can actually do it with ginkgo biloba. And ginkgo biloba is a way to raise those dopamine levels in your brain naturally. It's not an over-the-counter drug. It's not something that, it's an herb. That's what it is. But I suggest, if you really want to pay attention, and we'll talk about this next year, if you really want to pay attention to the acceleration of time and how you can slow that acceleration down and how you can hack into your brain and say, not today, time, you're going slow. I want to enjoy this holiday. I don't want to be shot out of the circus cannon come October 31st and wake up January 2nd going, what the hell? I want to enjoy time. I want it to slow down. Okay, ginkgo biloba is one of those herbs that's going to do that. And it works very, very well. I would suggest being on a 30-day regimen starting the 1st of September, so that by the time October 31st comes around, you're already 60 days into ginkgo biloba, and you will be remarkably impressed by the way that this will slow time down for you. This is something that you can do herbally. This is naturally. Okay, what we're speaking about in reading, in picking up a book, going to the library, thinking, oh my gosh, see? That's the new microphone, folks. That's how sensitive it is. It's so unbelievably sensitive. In picking up a really good book at your library, opening it up and reading yourself to sleep, you're allowing the subconscious to speak to the conscious mind and put yourself to sleep. And this is going to raise your dopamine levels too. I don't know, because I have not done the study, but I've done the research to be able to know that raising dopamine levels in your brain is what slows down time. And it's really good to slow down. And we don't do enough of it. We don't take that breath and let it out. And we don't slow down. Consciously, we don't do this. So how on earth could we expect to slow down subconsciously if we don't allow our own brains to slow down? Then how on earth would our subconscious be able to unlock that ability? By picking up that book, by reading, by stimulating the brain. Now, when you get into that mode and you start to read and you put the phone down for an hour before you actually go to bed, and you put all of that nonsense aside, and you let your mind go in the aspect of Notes on Blindness, and you let your mind imagine what your conscious is taking in. Your subconscious is creating that for you. And you're inevitably 9 times more likely to actually dream. Actually have dreams. Now, put a 1 in the chat room if you remember your last dream. Put a 1 in the chat room if you can remember the last time you actually had a dream. For some of you, you may dream every night. For some of you, you may have not ever had a dream. That's reality too. And when you don't dream, you don't enter that state of REM. Josh from Oregon with a 1, Higher Living with a 1. So you understand that you can take some sort of revelation from our dreams. And that's where, when time slows down and you let your subconscious relate to your subconscious through a book or even just meditation. There are audio files like what we played tonight that you can find on YouTube, binaural beats that you can listen to, that just free your mind and just relax without any stimulation. And when you do that, your brain and that aspect of your mind and the dopamine levels that are raised by that type of activity is what allows you to grow in new ways, in ways that, as Neil explained, in the reptilian brain, for instance, we're only talking about the creative side, the front lobe, as Neil described tonight. And I am going to do this again, Josh. I'm going to do a part 2 because tonight I'm freestyling. And I'm already at 8:20, which is way beyond. This was an hour show. Anyways, this is very, very important aspect of our ability to tap the brain, to hack the brain. Do you want to quit smoking? I don't. Do you want to lose weight? Perhaps. Do you want to increase your study habits? What is it that you want to do? Because whatever it is, whether you want to quit smoking, whether you want to learn at a better rate and retain what you're learning, whether you want to lose weight, you have the ability to do that. And it takes that time to disconnect from our modern world and get into this state of conscious, subconscious, where we blend our conscious together with our subconscious. And these are the ways you can do it. You can read a book at night. You can meditate at night. And the simple way is to, an hour before you're ready to climb into bed, to put your phone aside and literally just take that time for yourself. Because if you don't do this, you're disconnecting. And by the time you fall asleep with the ancillary ways, your brain cannot connect to the subconscious, which is perhaps why you haven't had a dream. If you're not able to answer in the chat and remember your last dream, it's because you're not disconnecting. And if you've ever seen that Netflix movie or show, series, whatever it is, The Black Mirror, did you know that the Black Mirror actually in Europe and the UK is referred to as your smartphone, or your handy as they call it? The smartphone is the Black Mirror. And that's what that entire show is based off of. And if you've watched it, you know you have to disconnect. Because if life is truly like what that show is portraying life to be, and we know it's all too real, then we have to unplug. We have to disconnect. We have to say, hey, I want to get creative. I want to be happy. I want to be Chinese. I want to be Japanese. I want to be Israeli. I want to be extraterrestrial. What is it you want to be? Only you can decide what's going to entertain your brain, what's going to keep you occupied, what's going to connect you to your subconscious. And when you find that connection, you truly will be rewarded, because that extra amount of connection from your conscious to your subconscious is going to reveal amazing things. And I encourage you, if you still have your earphones in tonight, and I apologize. This is not, although I can say this microphone really sounds awesome. Once I understand how all this controls and these new volumes and all this shit works, I'm going to redo the show, because I really want you to experience the binary illusions I had planned to stimulate your amygdala, however you say it. Tickle your amygdala. That's Neil Slade. He wrote the book. Art Bell brought him to the airwaves. He shared his thoughts back in 2001. And today we've rambled on and talked about Thank you. Please. We've talked about the connection, and I don't know. This rabbit hole tonight was way out of belief. Unbelievable. And if you are listening on demand and you're not part of the live audience and you've made it this far through the show, you really need to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Shameless self-promotion on an evening where shit just didn't go right. Yes, thank you, Higher Living, for being tickled, because that's what it's about. We have to tickle, like Neil Slade says. And in tonight's show notes, I've listed where you can find his book on Amazon. I'd suggest it. It's, I think, $7.99 or something like that. I have a version that I bought at a Borders bookstore back in 1998 or 99. I have no idea. But I have an original, hardbound book. And that's tonight what I'm going to grab off of the shelf. And instead of paying attention to YouTube and Twitter and all this nonsense, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to let myself go. Think about what it is that I want to achieve. And like I said, perhaps that's to quit smoking, which maybe someday I will. I'd like to. Maybe that's what I'll focus on. What would you focus on? What would you be better at in 2020? I'm not asking you to make a resolution. I'm not asking you to make a dedication. I'm just saying, what would you change? And you don't have to even tell me. Don't send me an email. Don't shout it out in the chat. Don't put it in the comment below. Think about in 2020, folks. What is it that you want to change? Think about dedicating that half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour before you go to sleep at night to making that change. Disconnecting. Tapping out. Finding an alternative way to connect and reconnect with your subconscious, because your subconscious wants to reconnect with you. And when you do that, you can do amazing things. That's for sure. And again, when I do this episode again, we'll have a lot more information to put forth in that discussion. What a night. What an unbelievable night. Not the way I intended, but give yourselves a round of applause for being smart enough to be here. I'm AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit. On Saturday, December 28th, the show fell apart, but the audience remained the same. So give yourselves a round of applause for being smart enough to be here. And I thank you beyond all belief, because you guys actually stuck around. Thank you. If you're listening on demand and you fast forwarded to this part of the show, it was a fantastic evening. We had no flaws or uninterrupted segments. Everything flowed just like it was supposed to. And if you're going to join us tomorrow, where hopefully this technology will be figured out, we're going to be discussing pyramid power. I have a guest that's going to be coming onto the show in the first part of the new year. We're going to talk about some of the work that he's been doing, and we're going to have a discussion about pyramid power. That's tomorrow night, Sunday, December 29th, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10/9 Central. And if you haven't done so already, get on our mailing list at ripinrabbithole.com. That's RIPON, rabbithole.com. We send out our schedule every Thursday morning. And of course, we're live every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday evening, starting at 10 p.m. Central, Eastern, 9 Central, 7 p.m. Pacific. We're here every weekend, and that Thursday morning schedule will get sent to you via email if you subscribe to our mailing list at rippandrabbithole.com. Starting January 1st, 2020 at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10, 9 Central, we will be here with a live broadcast. We're going to be doing the top 20 New Year's predictions for 2020. So you'll want to be here for that. Take part in that. It's going to be open lines. Have you call in. I'll be reading emails that we've gotten for the last 2 weeks. We've got shout outs that have come in. And if you'd like to add to the shout outs, you can do so on the bottom of every page at rippandrabbithole.com. Little red microphone. You can send up to a 30-second message. Send us your New Year's Eve predictions or email them to rippandrabbithole@gmail.com. And we'll be here reading the top 20 New Year's predictions for 2020. January 1st, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10, 9 Central. Again, I look forward to spending time with you wherever you are. Have a good evening, a good day, a good morning, whatever the case may be. I'm AJ, the Rippin' Rabbit. Until then, take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
I don't know what that does. Could rip a hole into the time space, the fabric of time and space. So I don't know. Could be CERN, time travel. A lot of people think there's time travels involved, which I'm starting to lean towards all these things kind of being involved. Consciousness shift. Now,
it's interesting that you bring up CERN. And of course, what brought the Mandela effect to our attention here at the Art Bell Archive live show is that Art Bell touched on this on a few different occasions through a point in time. The earliest that we know of being somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, where he had a vivid memory that Mandela had passed away. And that was, remembered details about the funeral that was airing, internationally. And, of course, as time went on, the story developed. This was several years before the actual term Mandela effect went mainstream, which I think we traced down in the earlier episode to 2009, 2010 with Fiona, who coined the phrase Mandela effect. Now, in that time frame, in that span of time, you talk about CERN. And of course, HAARP was a big Art Bell subject. CERN became a big Art Bell subject. And these types of subjects are what we're hoping to revitalize today. It's interesting to note that just today, physicists have finally seen traces of the long-sought particle. And basically, they proved the existence of dark matter today. And that scientists have finally found traces of the axion, an elusive particle that rarely interacts with normal matter. The axion was first predicted over 40 years ago, but has never been seen until now. Scientists have suggested that dark matter, the invisible matter that permeates our universe, may be made of these axions. And when we talk about affecting the universe on a global dark matter scale with things like the Large Hadron Collider and ripples in what we know to be time, is this a theory as to why the Mandela effect exists? And is it perhaps possible that they just proved that theory today?
Yeah, could be. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know exactly what they're doing at CERN, so it definitely could be. I'm not sure. You know, I know a lot of the theories. I wanted to mention consciousness shift because that was a big theory for me. I was making videos as early as 2011 on YouTube talking about a coming consciousness shift in humanity. I was studying the Mayan calendar, the 9 steps of creation, which is a little different than a lot of the other Mayan calendar information by Dr. Carl Kalleman from Stockholm, Sweden. He says that the 9 steps of creation take us to, we're in the 9th wave now. There's 9 waves, and it has to do with the steps on the 9-step pyramid that were built in Mexico. And so he says that we're in the final wave now, and it's a unity consciousness. So we're hit with all these waves over time, and they change consciousness over time. And so we're being hit with a unity consciousness. I was doing videos as far back as 2011 talking about a coming shift in consciousness. So that was what I initially thought this was, a shift in consciousness, an expansion of awareness, an awakening, a spiritual awakening type thing. And I've been on that train now all along. So there's just so many different theories because the unthinkable has happened here.
If you're just joining us, my guest tonight is Moneybags73. You can find him on YouTube at his YouTube channel, Moneybags73, where in March of 2016, he was hit with the Mandela effect like a ton of bricks. He's devoted thousands of hours of research and over 400 videos to this incredible phenomenon. And Moneybags, you just started telling us about theories and the way that family and friends respond. What is it to you that you accept? What is it that you stand for? And what is it that you will not accept? What is it that you will not stand for when it comes to the Mandela effect?
I believe 100% that this is a real phenomenon. It's not just misremembering. And I won't accept people saying that I'm misremembering and 100,000 other people are all misremembering, and we're all misremembering the same exact things in the same exact ways. I can't deal with that. But that's just, it gets so much more involved when you look at the research. To me, it's all about the research. And in the community on YouTube, we have a term called the reality residue. It's almost like residues left over from another reality. And another theory is that there's timelines collapsing. And so that's how you can have, for example, in The Silence of the Lambs, a popular line is "Hello, Clarice," that Hannibal Lecter says when she comes up to the cell, his jail cell, and she meets him for the first time. That line was never said. He never says, "Hello, Clarice." That's not in the movie. He says, "Good evening." So I've gone through and spent the time, and I've done this with 20, 30 movies. I've gone through all the interviews, not all, but as many as I can. And I found an interview where Anthony Hopkins remembers saying, "Hello, Clarice." I found the editor of the film. He said, we weren't sure if Anthony was going to embody Hannibal Lecter. And he says, when he said, "Hello, Clarice," we knew he got it right then. This is in an interview. This is the editor of the movie. He says, when he said, "Hello, Clarice." Well, he never said "Hello, Clarice" in the movie. And I have 2 different interviews where one, he says, well, when I say "good evening," I was trying to just, be calm and everything and then shock everybody by how Hannibal Lecter really is. And then another interview, he says, "Hello, Clarice, you're not really FBI, are you?" And so in two different interviews, he recalls himself saying good evening, and he recalls himself saying hello, Clarice, in the same exact scene. So that to me is like timelines that are collapsing and
just
becoming
converging
one.
with
merging.
Merging. So when you first discovered this and you started being aware of the phenomenon, what was something that really hit home? What's one that really, like, this is locally in my backyard. This is what happened.
Well, Jiffy was a big one. I realized that back in 2013, I picked up a jar of Jiffy. I hadn't bought Jiffy in a long time. My kids don't really eat much peanut butter, but I wanted peanut butter. So I picked up Jif and I looked at it like I was in a foreign land, or it was foreign to me. I was like, JIF. And so I was looking at it. I'm like, well, I guess they changed their logo. And I threw it in the cart and I went on with my life because there was no talk of any reality changing. Companies changed logos. I thought that's what happened. And then, of course, when I got hit with a ton of bricks, I realized, oh my gosh, I, at that point, had noticed Jiffy had changed for me. It was Jiffy my whole life, Jiffy and Skippy. I have a lot of people tell me, well, you're just thinking of Skippy and Jif, and you're mixing the two words together, and you're coming up with Jiffy. No, I remember Jiffy and Skippy, the two Y-ending peanut butters. That's how they're logically trying to explain me recalling Jiffy. But I've done 5 Jiffy videos, and I found 6 or 7 restaurants that have a famous Jiffy burger that all have peanut butter on them. And I called them up. I said, hey, this may sound like a dumb question, but what kind of peanut butter do you put on your famous Jiffy burger? And they told me, well, it's Jiffy. But there's never been a Jiffy peanut butter. And another one said, well, we used a crunchy Skippy, but of course it started with Jiffy, sir.
Crunchy Skippy.
So it's a crazy question because there is no Jiffy peanut butter.
There's Jif. That's it.
So
now I remember Jiffy. Burger. For me, when you say this, and this is the first time I heard this, Jif doesn't make any sense to me. Jiffy and Skippy, of course. I mean, peanut butter and jelly. But I'm probably closer to age than perhaps, our younger audience is to you. So I grew up in the 80s. I'm an 80s child. And Jiffy, I relate to you on. Now, with the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back and Luke, I Am Your Father, to me, that is the ton of bricks. I heard Luke, I Am Your Father. Not only did I hear it, I remembered it. Not only did I remember it, but I remembered children in our high school in the hallway that echoed being able to, in my mind's eye, remember children and kids, teenagers, going through the hall saying, Luke, I am your father. This was pop culture. And if you've ever done a whippet, you know that anybody that cracks that nitrous and sucks that balloon says, Luke, I am your father. I mean, that's pop culture. That's residue in your language, in your lexicon. That's residue. That means that's the way it used to be. And now, no, I am your father is the way that it's been changed today in 2019. Darth Vader said, no, I am your father. But in, 1987, 88, whenever that movie first came out, it was Luke, I am your father. Am I understanding that correctly? Like, that's the change.
It's kind of tricky because it hasn't changed. It's always been, no, I am your father. So that's another way to look at the Mandela effect. There is nothing has changed. In this reality, if you want to look at it like that, in this reality, it's always been, no, I am your father. Have you heard about the C3PO Mandela effect?
Mm-mm.
What color do you recall C3PO to be?
He was gold.
Was he all gold?
All gold.
Okay, so that's a huge Mandela effect. If you go look in the original movie, what is that, in the 70s? I don't remember the year, but the original, the first one that came out late 70s, I guess, 77, right? Something like that. He has a silver leg. His knee, I believe his knee is shin, all the way down. Half of his leg is silver and always has been. And so, that's a hard one for a lot of people to deal with because it was always a gold droid for me.
Now, today, of all days, happens to be Friday, November 22nd, 2019. Do you know what significant event happened on a Friday, November 22nd? Major event.
Yeah, I think I do. I'm hesitant to say the wrong thing.
I get it.
But I think I know what you're leading up to.
I'm speaking about the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
That's the one I came to mind, but I wasn't 100% on the date.
And JFK has been the source of many, many, many conspiracy theories.